After all I went through at home with my family and my heart shattered, I was ready to build a new life and fight against anything that would try to stand in my way. I have seen that I want to kill you look in someone's eye more times than I can count, so I knew how to spot him. Dilated, watery eyes. He was ready to chop me into pieces, and I was ready to fight back. I wasn't going to let the bad guys win, not this time. But I must confess that I never imagined that the battlefield would include the set of Judge Judy's TV show. We'll get back to it, but first let me tell you how we got there. When I left Kansas City, I was determined to chase my music dream. They say you gotta follow your passions, and that was mine. I remember when I was a kid, I used to hang with my sister and listen to duets. We take turns singing the boy and girl parts. I was all about them boy parts, but I could hit them high notes too. Like I told you before, my mom was a singer, but she lost her voice giving birth to me. She was a ride or die for Gladys Knight, and Midnight Train to Georgia was the first song I learned to two-step to. We played that for hours, just two-stepping away. When I was about 8 years old, I got obsessed with Michael Jackson like everybody else, right? I couldn't moonwalk yet, but I knew how to spin and rip my shirt off while screaming. I used to sing to my sister like I was in love, and she would act like my coach. We would belt out classy jams like Let Me Be Your Fire by Subway, and let me tell you, I absolutely killed it. And Man in the Mirror by MJ, oh yeah, I had that one down pat too. To be real, I was more into acting than singing. My sister made me flex my vocal cords because she knew I had talent. Around that time, Whitney Houston was blowing up. My mom wasn't really feeling her yet though. But we were in KC, where rap was on the rise. While we were still in the hood, it was still underground on the West Coast, like SIBO and E40. I must have watched Juice like 1,000,000 times a week back then, man. You remember renting movies, right? Good times. But rap was frowned upon, so my sister and I had to sneak around to bump it. Tapes were on their way out, and CDs were coming in. Man, that was some vintage stuff right there. Anyway, in the suburbs, there was only a couple of bars, so I hit up karaoke nights and straight up slayed those country tracks like Low Places and Tennessee Whiskey. Sometimes they gave me a standing no, and other times I had to listen to the crickets chirping. But I knew folks had a hard time admitting that a guy like me had skills. Let me tell you, when a girl followed me off stage after a performance interested in me, that's when I knew I loved to sing. I got more confident, and people started begging me to sing whenever I went. I love what it did to people. I was no longer a threat. I wasn't just a big black dude, I was something more. The day I knew I wanted to sing full-time, a vocal coach at college heard me sing and said I sang better than her. A trained coloratina soprano in opera? I thought she was just trying to flatter me. She gave me an evaluation and told me I need to take my voice more seriously. And you know how it went down. At home in the suburbs, my mother and sister really did support my music idea. They were 1,000 miles away now, but I didn't give a damn and started training full-time anyway. And I took that seriously, for real. I quit my job in February 2018 to go all in. I quit my job in February 2018 to go all in on a music career. I started taking classes at Long Beach, hitting up 5 to 6 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day, and doing vocal training 1 to 2 hours a day. I loved every minute of it. I knew classical music was dope and all, but it wasn't where my heart was. Still, the foundational knowledge I gained was super valuable because I learned everything there was to know about the body and all the physiological aspects of singing. During that time, I also became incredibly disciplined. I started practicing martial arts too, with a group of all black belts. I was becoming a master at singing and fighting. I don't know if I ever told you much about him, but my dad was a martial artist. It was like I was born to fight and sing. Those were my life passions ever since my parents fell in love. My goal was to make an audition for The Voice, so I knew I could do it and my life would change drastically. And you know what? I was even ready to do it a cappella, but my living situation was complicated. I was in a small-ass house with the roomie who kept jacking my food, so I had to lock up my stuff to keep things safe. He got angry and pulled a knife on me. I told our landlord, and I could have reported him to the police, but I didn't. I don't know why. I wish I would have. My mind was set on something else entirely. The voice audition. I was ready to put the stage on fire. Ready to put that stage on fire. Instead, my house was on fire. Right before my audition, it was the house that caught fire. Like, no joke. A new roommate who had just moved in started banging on my door, yelling that there was a fire. It was 11 p.m. and I was sleeping all naked. I opened the door and saw that the fire was less than 6 feet away from me, so I closed it, grabbed some clothes, and bounced. I barely made it out there before the fire reached my room. I lost everything. Everything. I was up all night with the American Red Cross, and I was messed up. The only clothes I had left were the ones on my back. My vocal coach convinced me to still hit up my audition, but I had planned to wear an ivory tuxedo jacket, black tuxedo pants, gold tip, and black suede shoes. What I ended up pulling off was a burgundy Echo shirt and some gray shorts with no drawers. I sat in that parking lot waiting for the audition to start. I was one of the first to show up, but my turn wasn't until the afternoon. I smelled like smoke and fire. I told the judge my story, but they didn't give me a chance. I couldn't believe it, and people looked shocked too. I was incredible. I hit up my vocal coach, and he couldn't even believe it. That summer, all I did was drink and sing karaoke. I had lost my home and the opportunity of a lifetime in just seconds. I ended up in a homeless shelter and had 3 months to find a new spot before I had to live in my car. He was literally a psycho. I'm not lying. I almost didn't make it out there alive to tell the tale. I wasn't a crazy fool who just took a leap of faith for no reason. At first, he seemed like a normal dude, but as soon as I moved in, he started opening doors when I was in the shower to ask questions. It was weird, but not too scary yet. Maybe it was weird, but not too scary yet. Maybe it was his weird way of trying to comfort me or something. It was like a 4 out of 10 on the weirdness scale. I'm not trying to brag, but I was a good roommate. A clean, tidy, and very appreciative. Sometimes I even cooked for him as a sign of respect and courtesy. But then we started to hit level 10. He tried to force me to clean up his mess in the kitchen, and when I refused, he hid his pots and pans. I solved the problem by buying my own, but he still had things to complain about. Then he decided to impose chores on me, like cleaning every time he made something. Again, I said no. He had the strange idea in his head that we were like a team of 3, him, his girlfriend, and me, literally, after I refused to be his bottom. Then I started to realize that my bedroom door was open when I knew for sure that it was locked. Just to make sure it was him, I set a little trap. I put a chair and beer bottles on the door just to make sure it was him. I set a little trap. I put a chair and beer bottles on the door that meticulously calculated its position to know if anyone had entered while I was sleeping. And he fell right into it. The next day, I confronted him, and the dude had the nerve to admit he did it, but with no sexual intentions. Are you kidding me? I know there was a lot of red flags here, but I still stayed. I couldn't afford anything else. I couldn't go back to that shelter again. But at this point, I was focused. I was singing occasionally and started training seriously in karate. I worked out almost every day, doing between 700 and 1,000 push-ups a day. I was fit, like a rock. I saw that something wasn't quite right in my landlord's head, and he told me that he was supposed to be on medication, but hadn't taken it in a minute. He said some nights he would just come and sit and watch me from the door, and other nights he would sit on the bed. That's when I confirmed my suspicions. But just to sleep a little easier, I put a chair in front of my door and a knife under my pillow. I was back in alert mode, and I had finally decided to get everything ready to bounce. What happened next? a freaking pandemic hit. COVID-19 came through and everything shut down. We couldn't go out. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. The world was in crisis. A non-for-profit had paid almost a year worth of my rent with my psycho landlord, so I still had about 2 months left there, but he was trying to get me to leave earlier. He followed me in and out the house within arm's reach. He was jumping up and down around me, telling me to leave. He boarded up my windows and built a door so I couldn't get into the kitchen, and he turned off the water so I couldn't shower. I still refused to leave. I wasn't scared of him or his tactics. At this point, I called the police 8 times, but they still didn't do anything. One day it hit me that the dude's plan was to take me out. As crazy as it sounds, he admitted it later, surprised that he didn't succeed. That day started off normal. I went out to take the trash like I always did early in the morning. When I came back home and I saw the trash scattered all around in my bedroom, that was the first time I saw red in my life. I went into the kitchen and saw him. If someone's ever tried to kill you, their eyes dilate and fill with tears. They look like the eyes from Bird Box before they committed suicide. It's real, no lie. I'm familiar with it. It was the same look I saw in my sister's eyes the last time I saw her. This guy was hiding his hands and had set up a camera pointing at the wall so no one could see what his plans were. I didn't attack him first. Something held me back. I went back to my room and called the cops. They asked me if I saw him make the mess in my room or if he had already attacked me. No, I didn't see nothing. Maybe I should have lied. They would have come. I asked the operator what would happen if I had attacked him, and she said he would have had every right to defend his property. That's when I knew he wanted to take me out. But even after that day, I stayed. Something inside me broke. I said I was going to die here, or I was going to leave on my own terms. It was fight or die. On June 1st, 2020, I said I was out. The day before I left, I asked him, was he planning to kill me? He calmly and politely said, "I'm surprised you figured it out." And I did. I spent all that time going from one Airbnb to another, from one hotel room to the next for almost a year. I finally sued my psycho landlord for what he did. I stood up and wanted justice. I still had proof that showed his guilt. I could only imagine what it looked like when he got those papers served. We had a court date, and I was ready with all the evidence. That's when Judge Judy hit me up and offered me money to appear on the show. I said, hell no. My life wasn't going to be a staged show. And since I was dead against it, they bumped up the appearance fee. They said they wanted to hear my story, and I wanted to tell it. So I finally agreed to appear. The day came. I have to say, I was really hyped. I was going to tell my story and get paid on the same day. I was ready for war, or so I thought. I had all my evidence ready, but she dismissed my case. Judge Judy dismissed my case. She wasn't even willing to hear what happened. Nobody ever heard what I went through. The sleepless nights, the violence, it all went away. I had to move on. I had been betrayed so many times, just another notch on my belt, I guess. I had given up everything I loved to get to this point, or it had been taken away from me. I can't say if God or Satan wants me. Whatever this is bigger than me. I was just stuck in the middle, trapped, but held up by music, a reason to keep going. I went to open mic nights and saw women cry at my feet. I went to bars and people naturally formed a line to talk to me. I love seeing how my voice moved people. I finally felt alive because I wanted my voice to sound the best it could be, but my roots were always tied to R&B and gospel. I got nice, real nice. Folks waited for me outside the room to hear me rehearse. All that pain I went through, gone. I was finally getting what was coming to me.